Wukong makes his way into the top 3 for jungle this patch, while Kha'Zix falls off due to his nerfs. Swain is now in a much stronger spot after his buffs from last patch and will be featured in the mid lane top 3. And did you know mastering your champion will boost your win rate by a massive 9% on average? That's why at SkillCapped we offer Smurf commentaries. Simply select the champion you want to master and get guides from challenger experts teaching how to play your champion in the exact rank you're stuck in. You're even guaranteed to have all your questions answered by that very same challenger expert. After that, take one of our 5 brand new courses that teach you the secrets to carrying as a top laner, jungler, mid laner, AD carry, and support. It doesn't stop there though. We have new Season 14 courses on macro, wave control, trading, setting and hotkeys, CSing, vision, mechanics, low elo mistakes, the list goes on. The best part, you can try all this out completely risk-free. Since if you don't rank up while actively using SkillCapped, you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below right now to get the rank you've always dreamed of. Making her first appearance on the solo carry list very shortly after her release is Ambessa. Ambessa is a really strong top lane carry right now if you put the time into her. Ambessa does have a bit of a higher skill floor than most champs just due to her kit being quite unique, but once you get a bunch of games on her, it will be well worth it. We even have a starter guide that was uploaded last week that you can check out before picking up Ambessa to help you fast track that success. One of the massive pros to Ambessa is that her skirmish and snowball strength is absolutely godlike. All the mobility Ambessa gets from her passive means that when she gets ahead, it's so difficult to shut her down. Ambessa really is the definition of a solo carry champion, as her 1v2 strength when she gets ahead is incredible. As for the build on Ambessa right now, Eclipse is what's being played most as the rush item. However, Voltaic Cyclo Sword is heavily outperforming. The core build leading to the best results has Ambessa rushing Cyclo Sword, going Black Cleaver 2nd and Spear of Shojin 3rd. Looking at Ambessa's matchups right now, one meta champ who's worth a ban is Renekton. Ren can beat Ambessa early on, and with his shield breaking mechanic on W, it makes Ambessa's ability to trade much less effective. Optimal rune setup also looks to be quite up in the air right now, as most players are going Conqueror with Resolve secondary. However, Domination secondary is outperforming, and it's being picked more by high elo Ambessa players. With Domination secondary, you get to run Sudden Impact, which has ludicrous value on Ambessa due to her spammable mobility. One of the easiest and most effective top lane champs that you can play for 14.23 is Malphite. Mal is kind of the polar opposite of Ambessa in the sense that his skill floor is way lower, and you can be useful on the pick even if you're first timing him. This is something that makes Malphite so reliable for solo queue because you're always going to be able to offer something for your team. Even if you fall behind on Malphite, it doesn't really matter because the teamfight impact he has can completely make up for any early game woes. There are only 2 meta matchups that you have to avoid at all costs when picking Malphite, and those champs are Sylas and Mordekaiser. Use your ban on Sylas because he's the most common counter to Malphite, and then if the enemy ends up picking Mordekaiser, you can just use your dodge. For the build on Malphite, Sunfire into Thornmail is the ideal setup when against a majority physical damage comp, while you can slot in Kaenic Rookhorn if up against a few magic damage threats. The best rune page for Malphite is Comet with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, while Second Wind and Overgrowth are for secondaries. And for our third solo carry top laner of the patch, we rounded out with Mordekaiser. Something that makes Mordekaiser so great for solo queue is the fact that he gets a much earlier power spike than most top lane champs. Rylai's is Mord's staple rush item, and it only costs 2,600 gold to complete. This is massive because most fighter items cost upwards of 3,000 gold, so what will end up happening in a lot of your games is you'll have your Rylai's completed while the enemy will still be sitting on components. This is your window to be really aggressive if you have your R available, as you will have a big edge up in the 1v1. Ban-wise when picking Mord, you can never really go wrong with Fiora, as her mobility and W make it so that you don't ever get to land your E. The best keystone rune for Mord is Conqueror with Triumph, Haste, and Last Stand, while Bone Plating and Revitalize are for secondaries. So for the first time all season long, we have the Monkey King making his way into the top 3 for jungle. Buffs from 14.22 were actually really big for Wukong jungle, and with meta junglers like Graves and Kha'Zix becoming weaker for this patch, it's all the more reason to put more priority on Wu. One of the big pros to picking Wukong is just how powerful he can be against other AD junglers due to his armor stacking passive. Skirmish power of Wukong is amazing, especially when he hits level 6, because he's got so much mobility, great consistent damage, and the armor stacking passive, which all tie together to allow Wukong to thrive in extended fights. In 14.22, Wukong was literally the only meta jungler to have a positive win rate against Graves, which just goes to show how good he is right now, since Graves nearly had a 20% play rate last patch. Even with Graves becoming slightly weaker due to the Ghostblade nerfs, his play rate should remain quite high for this patch, so now is a great time to pick up Wukong. The cookie cutter core build for Wukong consists of a Trinity Force Rush into Sundered Sky 2nd and either Sterix Gage or Black Cleaver 3rd. It's going to be Conqueror for the Keystone rune, followed by Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Freeboots and Cosmic Insight are for secondaries. Matchups are pretty solid for Wukong in the jungle right now. However, one champ he is struggling against is Teemo. Teemo with the Blind can negate a lot of your skirmish power, so he's a good ban if you intend on playing Wu. Breaking into the top 3 for jungle this patch, who has been quite underrated for a while now, is Warwick. Ever since Lethal Tempo was added back into the game, Warwick has been one of the best performing solo queue junglers, and with all these meta junglers nerfed for 14.23, he should start getting picked way more. Where Warwick really thrives is in those 2v2 or 3v3 skirmishes, as his damage reduction from E and healing from Q give him a ton of sustained durability. Warwick becomes extremely oppressive if given any sort of advantage due to the fact he can speed run around the map with the movement speed he gets from W. His movement speed from W is something that makes Warwick so great for solo queue because it just allows for him to capitalize on opportunities way more often than the majority of junglers. The build that you should be running on Warwick consists of a Stridebreaker Rush into Blade of the Ruined King 2nd and either Thornmail or Spirit Visage 3rd. There really isn't a specific meta jungler who hard counters Warwick that you have to worry about banning, so getting rid of a meta peel support like Lulu is a good idea. The Keystone Rune is Lethal Tempo with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Celerity and Water Walking are for secondaries. One of the best junglers in the game for a while now, who's going to become arguably the #1 jungler for 14.23, is Nocturne. With Graves, Shyvana, and Kha'Zix all losing power for this patch, it's going to be great for Nock, as those are the only meta junglers who had a higher win rate than him in 14.22. Nocturne is such a powerful champ for solo queue because his R gives you the ability to punish enemies' mistakes better than most champs in the game. Players are always going to be caught out of position in solo queue, and with Nocturne, you can literally instant punish that by pressing R. Playing to numbers advantages is also super key to winning in solo queue, so if your team is all grouped up and you see someone on the enemy team off by their own, you can force a 5v4 immediately to give your team a great chance at winning a team fight. The meta build for Nocturne right now is extremely powerful as you rush Stridebreaker, go Hexblade 2nd, and Sterix Gauge 3rd. Good ban for Nock right now is Lulu, as she's being played a ton in meta and makes finding those catch plays with R a bit more difficult. Best rune page consists of Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Eyeball Collection and Ultimate Hunter are for secondaries. A newcomer in the top 3 for mid lane for this patch is going to be Swain. Swain is so much stronger now after his buffs from 14.22, and not just for mid lane either, as you can flex him to top or bot. Swain's E feels so much more smooth to use now after the quality of life adjustments, and he's also just such a great pick into so many of the meta melee mids. In 14.22, Swain has been winning over 53% against Sylas, Yasuo, Galio, Yone, and Akali, who are 5 of the most highly picked mids in meta. What makes Swain so great into melee champs is the fact that he needs to be pretty up close to be effective. You want to be right in the middle of a fight with your R draining on multiple enemies, so against heavy melee comps is where Swain can thrive the most. Longer ranged pick champs are who you're going to have a more difficult time against, so banning out Hui or Lux is a good idea. The build for Swain mid is actually quite different than what we are seeing played in top and bot right now. It's a Blackfire Torch rush into Cosmic Drive 2nd that is leading to the best results for Swain mid. You're just getting a ton of ability haste from the core build, and the movement speed from Cosmic Drive helps you stick on targets. Swain Q becomes extremely spammable with this build as it's only a 3-second base cooldown at max rank, but drops down further to only 2 seconds with all the ability haste. For the Keystone Rune, it's Aerie that has been outperforming Conqueror on mid lane Swain. Aerie does add more power to Swain's laning and is especially good against melee champs. A staple in our mid lane top 3 for the past couple of patches now, and a very consistent mid lane solo carry, is Ahri. Ahri's just so great right now because many of the meta champs who were around her power level over the past patches, like Sylas, Syndra, and Hui, have all been nerfed, which has allowed for Ahri to solidify her spot on top of the meta. Ahri is one of the few mid lane champs who doesn't really have any glaringly bad matchups. Even in more difficult lanes, you can sit back and farm with Q, and then once you have R at level 6, it becomes very difficult for enemies to actually kill you due to the mobility. Ahri is one of the best mid laners in the game at following up on her junglers engages, which is really nice for solo queue, especially where capitalizing on numbers advantages is so key to winning. Being able to find those picks on enemy squishies who are caught out of position is Ahri's specialty. One of the better value bans right now when picking Ahri is Sylas, as he's being played so much in meta and can be quite difficult to contain when stealing Ahri R. Build for Ahri revolves around Malignance into Horizon Focus 2nd and Zanya's or Rabadon's 3rd. Electrocute is the optimal Keystone Rune, followed by Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter, while Mana Flow and Transcendence are for secondaries. It's a very light patch in regards to mid lane changes for 14.23, so Vex is going to remain a very strong solo carry mid. With Sylas nerfed last patch, the matchup has become even more Vex favored, as she's been winning an astonishing 56% of the time against him. It's Vex's passive combined with her W shield that makes her so powerful into melee mids. As long as you're playing around those cooldowns, then there's no way for melee champs to actually win a trade against you. Vex and Ahri both have really good level 6 skirmishes, which makes them such great solo queue champs. With Vex R, you can follow up on plays from range, which allows you to thrive a lot more in the chaotic nature of solo queue. Your ban when playing Vex is always going to be best used on a longer ranged mage like Hui or Lux, as Vex is shorter ranged herself, which makes it more difficult to play into those. The optimal core build that you should be running revolves around Eluden's Rush into Shadow Flame's second and Zanya's or Rabadon's third. You should be taking Electrocute for the Keystone Rune, followed by Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter, while Mana Flow and Transcendence are for secondaries. One of the best ADCs from 14.22 is going to become even better this patch due to indirect buffs, and that champ is Jinx. Jinx was one of the few ADCs last patch who was actually liking Yuntal Wild Arrows as her rush item. So now that the item was buffed for 14.23, it's going to provide her with even more power. All the ramping attack speed that Jinx can get from her passive and lethal tempo gives the passive from Wild Arrows a lot of strength on her. Every attack is going to reduce the passive on Wild Arrows by 1 second, so the more attack speed you have, the faster it comes back off cooldown. The 3-item spike is incredibly powerful for Jinx right now, as you get 75% crit along with a very healthy amount of AD and attack speed. Jinx, being an ADC who lacks a gap closer, would prefer not to play into a comp with heavy dive, so using your ban on a meta dive champ like Ahri is good value right now. The best Keystone Rune for Jinx is Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Cutdown, followed by Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm for secondaries. With both Kate and Kog'Maw nerfed for 14.23, it's going to open things back up for Corki to be a top 3 ADC. Corki has been a really good pick for a few patches now and will become an even better option moving forward. One thing to keep in mind for this patch is that you'll definitely want to avoid running the Collector build. Item is getting nerfed and it was already being outperformed by Trinity Force last patch, so definitely swap over to the Trinity into Manamune build for 14.23. Trinity Spike is what you should be playing for in every single lane, and if you're able to complete the item before the enemy ADC has their first item, you should be looking to play very aggressive. Something that really sets Corki apart from a lot of other ADCs is his ability to burst super hard. When paired up with a melee engaged support, Corki can be extremely deadly at level 6. If you have an empowered rocket ready with R and can follow up with your Q, that absolutely chunks and gives Corki a really strong 2v2 skirmish. Corki is relatively shorter ranged, at least until he gets level 6, so banning out a meta longer ranged ADC like Caitlyn is good value. For Corki's rune page, look to grab Conqueror, followed by Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Cutdown, while Biscuits and Jack of all trades are for secondaries. And to round out the top 3 for ADC this patch, we've got Sivir. We really think that Sivir should start getting a lot more attention over the next patch or so, because she's right on the cusp of breaking through as the best solo queue ADC. This patch, we are seeing a nerf to the Collector, and even though it is quite small, it's still an indirect boost to Sivir, as picks who have been around her power level like Jhin and Kate get weaker. What's led us to this point of Sivir breaking through is just an accumulation of changes over months. Sivir was directly buffed, a ton of ADCs were nerfed, while Sivir's core item being Essence Reaver was buffed. After rushing Essence Reaver, you should go into Flicker Blades as your second item, and then Infinity Edge is third. Sivir's auto range is quite low, so she can run into issues against longer range champs in lane like Ashe, so she's a good ban option. Lethal Tempo is the best Keystone Rune for Sivir, followed by Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Cutdown, while Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm are for secondaries. For the first time in a while, we have a mage who's thriving in the support role for solo queue, and that champ is Vel'Koz. The 14.23 buffs have been great for Vel, with his R cooldown and E cooldown being reduced. R cooldown dropping by 20 seconds at level 6 is amazing because Vel R is a spell that you can spam off cooldown. The all-in kill threat with R as opposed to without is night and day, so you just have more windows of opportunity now with the champ. The meta for ADC is absolutely perfect for Vel right now too, because we're seeing longer range champs like Jhin, Ashe, and Kate being played a ton. Pairing Vel'Koz up with any of those three gives you an extremely oppressive laning phase, as all the poke you have can lead to absurd pressure. Since Vel is quite skill shot reliant, avoiding ADCs who are mobile is going to lead to much better results for you, so using your ban on Corki or Caitlyn is good value right now. For the build, you should be running a Horizon Focus Rush into Liandry's second, and of course Realm Spike is the item upgrade. Optimal Keystone Rune is Comet with Mana Flow, Absolute Focus, and Scorch, while Cheap Shot and Relentless Hunter are the optimal secondaries. It's pretty crazy how long Poppy has been a powerful support for, as she's back in the top 3 for 14.23. Riot has nerfed Poppy a couple times now, but the nerfs just didn't really do anything to actually reduce her power level that significantly. There's so much to like about Poppy when it comes down to a great solo carry support. She's just so versatile, as Poppy has the ability to engage, disengage, has very good damage output for a support, roaming strength is amazing, the list just goes on. The only bigger con to Poppy is that she doesn't have the longest range engage, so playing into supports with strong peel strength can be more difficult. In this case, Lulu being played at the rate she is right now makes her one of the better bans for Poppy. The build you should be running revolves around a Dead Man's Plate Rush into Locket second, and Blood Song is the item upgrade. It's going to be Hail of Blades for the Keystone Rune with Sudden Impact, Zombie Ward, and Relentless Hunter, while Hex Flash and Cosmic Insight are the best secondaries. For the first time all season long, we will be featuring the River King in the top 3 for support. Tahm Kench has been gaining a ton of relative strength over the past few months just due to so many supports around him getting nerfed. The champ also has a really nice meta build for solo queue, as rushing Heartsteel is what works the best, and it provides you with a really nice amount of damage and durability. Tom's skirmish on that Heartsteel completion is super strong, and is when you should be looking to force the 2v2. One of the only champs that Tom has a negative win rate against right now is Vel'Koz. Vel, being a longer range pokey mage, is more difficult for Tahm Kench to lane into, so using your ban on him is good value. Ideally, you want to be picking Tom against other melee supports, as that's where he has the most value. You can definitely still make him work into range matchups though, as the gap closed from W allows for Tom to fish for all-in plays when he sees an opening. The rune page that you'll want to be running on Tahm Kench consists of Grasp with Shield Bash, Second Wind, and Unflinching, while Triumph and Alacrity are the best secondaries. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for our 14.23 update on the best solo carries. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.